When a single calm smile hides a plan that could shake an entire sect, you know this is no ordinary confrontation. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Han Li smiled faintly, his expression calm, yet brimming with confidence. It doesn't matter. Let us first see how it unfolds. If it fails, we will retreat immediately. With me here, no matter what restrictions bind your body, I will still be able to take you away safely. Nanggongwan studied him in silence for a long moment. At last, she seemed to realize that the man before her was not one whose resolve could be shaken. She bit her lip lightly and spoke in a low voice. Very well. Though I do not know how deep your abilities truly are, since you dare to speak with such certainty, you must possess some measure of strength. However, there is no need for you to take the initiative and seek her out. My senior martial sister's residence is layered with restrictions. I will lure her here instead. Once she arrives, we can make use of the restrictions to ambush her while her guard is down. Han Li pondered briefly, then smiled. That approach is indeed more reliable. However, can the restrictions in your cave residence still be used? When I arrived, it seemed that many of them had already been shattered. Nanggongwan replied without hesitation, her tone firm. There is no need to worry. Although my senior martial sister destroyed several surface restrictions, there remains a hidden restriction of exceptional power that she has yet to discover. It is still usable. Han Li stroked his chin, a glint flashing through his eyes. Good. If that is the case, then things become much simpler. I also possess several sets of spell formations. Though their power is limited once deployed, they should still be able to hinder her movements to some extent. Hearing this, Nanggongwan's confidence clearly grew. Her gaze sharpened as she nodded. You have formation flags as well. Even better, we cannot afford to delay. I will need half a day to remove the restrictions on my body and restore my magical power. During that time, you should begin setting up the spell formations. After giving the matter some thought, Han Li asked with a trace of puzzlement, if we succeed in restraining your senior martial sister, wouldn't you then be able to take control of the masked moon sect? In that case, there would be no need for us to flee at all. Nanggongwan was momentarily startled. She then shook her head decisively. That will not work. Aside from my senior martial sister, there is still another nascent soul cultivator within the sect. Although my relationship with him is not bad, he would never allow me to illegitimately assume the position of Grand Elder. Moreover, I have no interest in power struggles. All I desire is a peaceful place where I can cultivate in silence. Han Li shook his head slightly and let out a cold chuckle. If that is so, then forget it. As long as this proceeds smoothly, you can follow me back to the Drifting Cloud Sect. Even if the Nine Nations Union were far stronger, and even if Wei Wuya doted heavily on Wei Liken, he would not dare recklessly offend the Heavenly Tao Alliance, especially with two nascent soul cultivators involved, and with the Spell Warrior invasion underway. As he spoke, Han Li slapped the storage pouch at his waist. With a flick of his wrist, piles of formation flags and formation plates appeared before him. Seeing this, Nanggongwan smiled faintly and sat down once more. She closed her eyes, forming an unusual incantation seal with her hands. Moments later, her snow-white robes erupted in scarlet-red flames that surged upward to a height of over a meter, completely enveloping her figure. Han Li immediately set into motion. His figure blurred, transforming into a series of after-images as he circled the hall, planting formation flags and laying down formation plates one after another. Brilliant lights of various colors flickered briefly before sinking deep into the hall, vanishing without a trace. Arranging the formations took little time. To maximize their effectiveness, Han Li limited the spell formations to the area of the hall alone. Moreover, he deliberately concealed them so thoroughly that they would remain undetectable unless one conducted a meticulous search. These formation flags and plates had all been refined by Han Li during his core formation stage. Their power was insufficient to threaten even a core formation cultivator, let alone a nascent soul cultivator. Han Li himself did not place much hope in them. After completing the setup, he muttered softly to himself. Suddenly he swept his sleeve. A streak of white light shot forth from within, circling him once before landing in front of him. It revealed itself to be a small white fox. Silvermoon beamed mischievously. "Master, aren't you afraid that summoning me will make Mistress Nanggong jealous?" Han Li raised his brows and shot her a glare. "Humph. Who would be jealous of an artifact spirit like you? I will soon be facing a mid-nascent soul cultivator, and I absolutely cannot allow her to escape. Even with restrictions assisting me, I will still require your help. A mid-stage nascent soul cultivator is worlds apart from one at the early stage. Even if I exert all my strength, overcoming her will be extremely difficult. Silvermoon immediately became serious. Master, how do you intend for this servant to assist you? Hanlai retrieved an item from his storage pouch and handed it to her. It's simple. Use this treasure at the appropriate moment. You must not allow her to flee. Silvermoon grasped the object with her claw, her eyes widening in disbelief. You're letting me use this, Hanlai replied calmly. That's right. With you controlling it, you should be able to unleash even more of its power than I can. Moreover, using this item would consume a great deal of my magical power, so it is better left to you. Naturally, you will only be able to wield it for a short time. Artifact spirits cannot control other treasures for long. Silvermoon lowered her head, her tone subdued. Silvermoon understands. As she spoke, she gently rubbed the object several times, as if reluctant to part with it. Seeing this, Han Li felt his heart stir slightly. Once Silvermoon finished grasping the item, silver light flickered across her entire body, and she sank into the ground, disappearing without a trace. Afterward, Han Li walked several circles around the hall. Suddenly, inspiration struck. He raised his head and stared at the ceiling. After muttering to himself for a moment, he tossed his spirit beast pouch into the air. A large swarm of black-tainted gold-devouring beetles burst forth, swirling above him in a cloud nearly 3 meters wide. Hanley took a deep breath and exhaled an azure mist toward the insect cloud. Forming an incantation seal with both hands, he softly chanted an incantation. The cloud buzzed briefly before dispersing into countless specks of starlight. These motes drifted upward, flickering with azure light as they merged into the ceiling and vanished completely, their aura perfectly concealed. Hanley narrowed his eyes and stared at the ceiling for a while longer. Sensing nothing amiss, he nodded in satisfaction. Having completed all preparations, Han Li turned his gaze toward Nangong Wan. At this moment, the flames surrounding her shifted and flowed, gradually condensing into a round crimson disk that pulsed rhythmically with light. The transformation of the flames disturbed the spiritual qi within the hall, causing it to churn restlessly. Han Li frowned slightly. After a moment's thought, he struck a nearby stone pillar with a spell seal. Instantly, a layer of azure barrier materialized, enveloping Nangong Wan at its center. Before long, the spiritual qi in the hall returned to normal. Seeing this, Han Li smiled. He extended his arm, summoning a straw chair into his grasp, then casually sat down across from Nangong Wan, silently gazing at her. With such a rare opportunity to admire her captivating features, he naturally wished to take a long look at the woman he had yearned for over so many years. Before long, Han Li became entranced, his expression gradually relaxing. But in the next instant, his figure vanished abruptly without any warning. The woman who had been secretly spying from outside the hall was startled. Cursing inwardly, she immediately tried to flee. However, she was too slow. Han Li's calm voice sounded behind her. "Why are you spying on us? Are you not afraid that your martial ancestor will reprimand you?" She did not dare turn her head. Stammering, she replied, I wasn't spying. It's just that martial ancestor hasn't emerged for such a long time, so I became worried." She was the yellow-robed woman who had earlier led Han Li into the hall. At this moment, she clearly sensed an overwhelming pressure looming behind her, forcing her to offer her trembling explanation. With his hands clasped behind his back, Han Li stared at her emotionlessly. "Oh, is that so? Since you merely wished to take a look, why did you conceal yourself so thoroughly? You even used a rare high-grade talisman, the Concealing Spirit Talisman. How did a mere foundation establishment cultivator like you obtain such an item?" Before she could finish, Han Li spoke coldly. "There is no need for further explanations. You will obediently follow me back. Once your martial ancestor is finished, she will decide how to deal with you." Upon hearing this, the yellow-robed woman was seized by fear. Without hesitation, she crushed the talisman in her other hand. Yellow light flashed around her body as she shot down the corridor, attempting to escape. Han Li watched her coldly, making no move to pursue. After she had traveled roughly 30 meters, a nearby wall suddenly expelled a cloud of pink mist, instantly engulfing her. The yellow light surrounding her body scattered. She swayed several times before collapsing onto the ground. In a flash of silver light, Silvermoon emerged gracefully from the wall. She flicked her tail lightly a few times, then walked toward the fallen young woman with a gentle smile. Setting Sun Hall had served as the residence of the Masked Moon Sect's Grand Elder for countless generations. Not only was a spirit well established there, the hall itself was layered with heavy restrictions. Aside from a handful of other elders, no one could approach it freely without the Grand Elder's permission. At that moment, a streak of crimson light cut across the horizon. It circled Setting Sun Hall several times before slipping inside without the slightest obstruction. The red light passed through multiple layers of restrictions as though they did not exist, weaving through several corridors before entering a side chamber. Inside sat a woman of graceful beauty, meditating upon a prayer mat. Her skin was pale as frost, her appearance no more than that of a woman in her early 20s. A faint, icy aura radiated from her body. The instant the red light appeared before her, the woman slowly opened her eyes, a slight frown creasing her brow. She beckoned casually, and the red light descended into her palm, condensing into a fist-sized sphere of crimson radiance. She studied it briefly, then expressionlessly flipped her hand, extinguishing it in an instant. "What is that girl plotting?" she murmured coolly. "Taking the initiative to see me? Still, since her tone was so gentle, I suppose I should take a look." Without hesitation, her figure transformed into a streak of white light, shooting out of Setting Sun Hall in the blink of an eye. Not long after she arrived before Nangong Wan's cave residence. Landing lightly on the ground, she swept her gaze across the surroundings. Everything appeared ordinary, and the damaged restrictions outside the cave still seemed unusable. Finding nothing amiss, she walked forward confidently and struck the stone door with a white spell seal. The door opened on its own. The pale woman entered without uttering a word. "I pay my respects to martial ancestor." A young woman dressed in yellow, standing behind the stone door, immediately bowed deeply the moment she saw her. The icy woman glanced at her casually and spoke indifferently. "It seems your cultivation has improved since I last saw you. You must have already taken the medicinal pills I gave you." As she spoke, she continued walking deeper into the cave residence. The yellow-clothed woman lowered her head and hurriedly replied, "Many thanks for the medicine, martial ancestor. Without it, this disciple could never have progressed so quickly. It is good that you understand this." The icy woman's voice remained flat. "Tell me, has junior martial sister Nangong done anything unusual lately?" The young woman answered obediently, her words measured. "Nothing out of the ordinary. Aside from meeting a Sect disciple earlier today, she has done nothing else." The icy woman frowned faintly. "Martial Uncle Lan already informed me of that through a sound transmission talisman. What gift did that disciple bring? Has he already left?" "He was merely a low-grade steward of the Sect and left several hours ago." After martial ancestor Nangong received the gift, she seemed somewhat unhappy. The icy woman's expression shifted slightly. Oh, what kind of gift could make her unhappy? The yellow-clothed woman lowered her head further, speaking with great care. "It was only a silver sword magic tool." Martial ancestor Nangong appeared uneasy upon seeing it. After pondering for a moment, the icy woman showed a trace of surprise. "It likely came from a vagrant cultivator she befriended during her travels." "That is nothing particularly strange. Martial ancestor's insight is correct," the young woman replied quickly. After receiving the silver sword, martial ancestor Nangong remained lost in thought for a long time. Afterward, she decided to send a voice transmission talisman to martial ancestor. The icy woman mused softly. To think that such a thing could change her mind. Then she added casually, "From now on, continue observing junior martial sister Nangong's actions closely. With her cultivation restricted, the high-grade talisman I gave you should allow you to spy on her without being detected. As long as you perform well, I will reward you generously." By then, the two had already arrived outside the main hall. "As you command, martial ancestor," the yellow-clothed woman replied softly. "Martial ancestor Nangong should already be waiting for you inside." She stepped forward to lead the way. Out of long-standing habit, the icy woman intended to pause and examine her surroundings before entering. However, just as she reached the entrance, Nangong Wan's calm voice sounded from within the hall. "Senior martial sister, please come in. I have given the matter some thought and can reluctantly agree on one condition. You must make a promise." The icy woman was pleasantly surprised. Without further hesitation, she stepped inside and spoke warmly. "Junior martial sister Nangong, it is wonderful that you have finally come to your senses. As long as you agree to marry Elder Wei of the Flowing Mind Sect, I will agree to any condition you raise." With Wei Wuya's support, our masked moon sect will surely flourish. As she spoke, the entire hall came into view. Nangong Wan sat quietly in a straw chair, a crudely refined silver sword resting across her body. She held it in one hand, carefully examining its blade, as though she had not spoken at all moments earlier. Seeing this, the icy woman stepped further into the hall. A trace of confusion flickered across her face, and she was about to speak again, when her expression abruptly changed. Her arm shot backward with lightning speed, and 5-inch-long sword lights burst forth from her fingers, streaking toward the spot where the yellow-clothed woman stood. As the attack approached, a strange smile suddenly appeared on the young woman's face. In a flash of yellow light, her body sank straight into the stone floor, leaving behind only tattered remnants of her yellow robes. Realizing what had happened, the icy woman immediately surged toward the hall's exit, her body wreathed in light. But just as she reached the doorway, a sharp whistling sound tore through the air. A colossal azure sword over 10 meters long shot toward her with terrifying force, intent on cleaving her in two. Her expression changed drastically. With a swift flick of her fingers, 10-foot-long streaks of icy white light burst forth and collided with the massive sword. A series of deafening explosions rang out. The violent impact forced both the azure sword and the woman to recoil. The icy woman retreated nearly 10 meters before managing to stabilize herself. The massive sword dimmed, then split apart into several dozen flying swords that hovered and circled in place. Gradually, a figure emerged from within the rotating blades, a young man with an ordinary appearance, gazing at her with a faint smile. When she clearly sensed Han Li's cultivation, her pupils shrank. Her voice turned cold as she demanded, "What is the meaning of this junior martial sister Nangong? Who is he? And what was that doppelganger of Yu'er?" As she spoke, she reached to her waist and pulled out a crimson command medallion. Han Li's gaze fell upon it, his expression darkening. "The restriction medallion." With a cold snort, the icy woman replied harshly, "So junior martial sister Nangong has told you everything after all. I do not care who you are, but these matters concern the masked moon sect alone. You would do well to withdraw, or the 6 sects will hunt you down without mercy." By then, Nangong Wan had already put away the silver sword. She stood gracefully, her expression icy as she spoke. "There is no need for senior martial sister to use such frightening words. I am not without allies among the 6 sects. If they were to learn what senior martial sister did to a fellow sect member, would she truly escape judgment? And though you may activate the heart restriction technique with that medallion, do you truly believe I will give you the chance?" As soon as she finished speaking, Nangong Wan spat out a ring of flame, her magic treasure, the vermilion bird band. A sinister glint flashed through the icy woman's eyes. She showed no intention of retreating and instead sneered resentfully. With a sharp shake of her sleeves, she tossed out 2 streaks of light, one white, one black. They circled her once before rapidly expanding to 3 meters in length. The white sword was pure as snow, radiating bone-chilling cold, while the black sword emitted a strange searing heat, its surface flickering with black flames. They were a rare pair of yin-yang flying swords. The icy woman laughed coldly. She raised the crimson command medallion and muttered several incantations into it. Crimson light flickered, immediately slowly enveloping the medallion. Seeing her actions, Han Li did not hesitate. Without a second thought, he moved to interrupt her. The small silver bell was already circling above his head. At the command of his hand seals, it rang out sharply, unleashing waves of silver sound that crashed toward her. Almost simultaneously, Han Li rolled his hands together, sending 1 streak of crimson light and 1 streak of azure light shooting toward 2 nearby stone pillars. As the hall's restrictions activated, the ground began to tremble violently. Threads of crimson and azure light began to surge forth from every corner of the hall. They followed closely behind the silver sound waves, intertwining as they rushed forward, engulfing the icy woman at their center. Faced with the incoming onslaught, the woman merely raised a finger and pointed toward her 2 flying swords. Instantly, black and white radiance erupted from them. The swords spun once through the air, releasing waves of glacial cold and searing heat, with icy white chi forming the outer layer and scorching black chi condensing within. The energies merged into a bizarre yet flawless barrier of light around her. When the silver sound waves struck this barrier, they vanished without leaving behind even a ripple. Yet moments later, the red and azure lights of the hall's restrictions surged forward and wrapped tightly around it. At that precise instant, Nangongwan made her move. Flames erupted as the vermilion bird band transformed into a massive fireball, radiating an overwhelming pressure that shook the air. With a seemingly casual wave of her hand, a dim scarlet light flickered, and Nangongwan vanished from sight. Were it not for Han Li's vast spiritual sense, he would not have perceived her covert strike at all. A muffled groan echoed. The dim scarlet light burst apart in a dazzling spray of colors. Her face contorted with shock and fury as she cried out, "To think you would use a devil-slaying thorn to wound me! Well done! I truly believed Junior Marshall's sister had already expended every last one. I never imagined you managed to preserve one." Though she had clearly suffered a heavy blow, her vitality remained strong. Han Li immediately judged that the injury was only superficial. Nangongwan's true intention had been to interrupt her activation of the restriction medallion. As the hall's restrictions continued to activate, Han Li flipped his hand. A pitch-black mountain, thousand-layer mountain, appeared in his palm. He hurled it into the air and rapidly formed spell seals striking the treasure in quick succession. Momentarily restrained by the hall's restrictions, the vermilion bird band surged toward the icy woman as a blazing sphere of fire. Yet in the same instant, 8 ferocious flame pythons, each as thick as an arm, burst forth and entangled it. A roaring sea of flames instantly flooded the hall. By then, the Black Mountain had expanded to nearly 20 meters in height. Just as Han Li was about to command it to descend, a bowl-thick beam of rainbow light suddenly shot out from within the inferno. Wherever the beam passed, be it flame or light, nothing could withstand it. A series of metallic clangs rang out as the rainbow beam abruptly halted, striking the spiraling vermilion bird band and locking it firmly in place. The light stasis mirror. Han Li's eyes narrowed, his expression turning grave. Before the confrontation, Nangongwan had explained her senior martial sister's techniques and treasures in detail. Among them, the light stasis mirror was mentioned most often, and for good reason. It was one of her most mysterious and formidable ancient treasures. The azure stasis mirror Han Li had seen during the trial by blood and fire was most likely a replica of this very artifact. Though it possessed only a fraction of the original's power, it was still renowned among low-grade cultivators as one of the finest magic tools in existence. Under the mirror's overwhelming might, the azure restrictions and raging flames were thrown into chaos, rendered completely ineffective. The icy woman's figure reappeared once more. Within the black and white barrier, she held the mirror in one hand while forming incantation seals with the other. Han Li's gaze locked onto the famed mirror. It was not large, and in appearance it closely resembled the azure stasis mirror. Yet its body radiated a pitch-black glow that exuded an eerie, unsettling aura. The rainbow beam it emitted stood in stark, bizarre contrast to the darkness, forming a chilling spectacle. The hand forming the incantation seal was stained with blood. The restriction medallion she had held earlier was nowhere to be seen. How she had been injured through the barrier remained unfathomable, yet the devil-slaying thorn's effectiveness was undeniable. With Nangongwan's bonded treasure restrained, Han Li did not hesitate. He silently pointed toward the Black Mountain. The thousand-layer mountain trembled, faintly vanished, and in the next instant, reappeared directly above the icy woman, plummeting downward with terrifying force. The woman scoffed. Slightly adjusting the angle of the light stasis mirror, she struck it with a spell seal from her free hand. The existing rainbow beam quivered, and a thinner branching ray shot forth, slicing through the air faster than sound as it streaked toward the falling mountain. Anticipating such resistance, Han Li clasped his hands into an incantation seal without hesitation. The descending mountain abruptly halted, mid-air rotated once, and expelled a massive cloud of black light from its underside, intercepting the beam just before impact. The black cloud swallowed the rainbow light in an instant, then surged downward, crashing against the woman's barrier. The black layer trembled violently, throwing her internal spiritual chi into disarray and nearly causing the beams from the mirror to scatter. Her silhouette wavered behind the barrier, her expression finally changing. Without delay, she spat out a mist of azure chi onto the mirror. Reinforced by this energy, the rainbow light condensed and dispersed the black cloud, halting the mountain's descent. The clash of forces culminated in a series of dull, thunderous explosions. Seeing the stalemate, Nangongwan's fighting spirit surged. She willed the restrained vermilion bird band to fluctuate violently in size. It let out piercing phoenix cries as it struggled with all its might to break free. For a time, Han Li and Nangong Wan joined forces, barely managing to hold their ground against Nangong Wan's senior martial sister. Naturally, none of the three were merely maintaining the deadlock, they were all closely observing one another's movements. Han Li moved first. He slapped his waist and summoned his spirit beast pouch. With a loud buzz, countless glittering golden beetles poured forth, coalescing into a sinister, malevolent cloud. Nangong Wan followed, chanting an incantation that sounded like an otherworldly song. A massive scarlet barrier suddenly manifested a meter above her head, its surface flowing with radiant light that steadily intensified. The icy woman abruptly tossed the mirror into the air and slammed her palms together, summoning a small triangular flag into her grasp. Despite her preparations, her voice darkened as she exclaimed, "Divine Incarnation Light, Junior Martial Sister Nangong, you truly are holding nothing back. You dare to use this." She glanced briefly at the golden insect swarm, finding it strange, yet paid it little attention, clearly unfamiliar with the gold-devouring beetles. A faint smile curved Nangong Wan's lips as she replied calmly, "If Senior Martial Sister does not wish to fight to the death, then hand over the heart-restraining medallion and leave us be." The icy woman snorted, killing intent surging across her face. She opened her mouth and spat out a small blood-red sword. The sword was only a few inches long, yet it gleamed with blinding crimson light. A thread of black chi coiled faintly around its body. The moment it appeared, the sword trembled violently, filling the hall with a thick stench of blood. Nangong Wan's smile vanished instantly. She stared coldly at her senior martial sister. "The Blood Devil Sword. Since when did you acquire such an evil treasure? Are you not afraid of the backlash from its devilish chi?" "Backlash," the icy woman laughed coldly. "Do not worry. With this artifact, I will defeat you so quickly, there will be no chance for backlash at all." Her gaze sharpened as she continued. "But now I will ask you one final time. Are you truly unwilling to marry Wei Liken for the prosperity of the sect? If you still refuse, I will let the Blood Devil Sword go berserk. I am not entirely confident I can restrain its power, then do not blame me for failing to warn you." Her voice rang with absolute certainty. Han Li glanced at the Blood Devil Sword without the slightest concern and spoke calmly. "There is no need for further questions. Even if Wana were willing to sacrifice herself for the masked moon sect, I would never allow it. This farce ends here." "And who are you?" the icy woman demanded, her eyes flashing coldly. "Your cultivation and abilities are not weak, yet I recall no nascent soul cultivator matching your description. Could you be newly ascended? And to address her so intimately as Wana, you must be the reason she has refused to marry Wei Liken all this time." Murderous intent surged as Nangong Wan's senior martial sister fixed Han Li with a deadly stare.